When I went for my prenatal checkup, Ethan Carter was at the same hospital, his arm wrapped around his secretary Chloe Reed, getting her a gynecological exam. I was so furious that I went into premature labor on the spot, blood gushing down my legs, my white dress stained red. The nurses rushed me to the ER. As we passed them, he covered Chloe's eyes and said coldly, "It's dirty, don't look." The night of my DC, a family member's signature was required. I called Ethan, but a woman's breathy, coquettish voice answered instead. "Ethan, honey's busy right now. He can't take your call." I hung up calmly, then dialed another number. "Lucas, help me erase all my records. I want to disappear from Riverton." "Lena, you've finally come to your senses. Welcome home." "Yeah, the sooner the better. I'll have everything done in 2 weeks. I promise." The second I hung up, Ethan called back. Once, I would have answered instantly. Not anymore. I hung up without a second thought. A moment later, my WhatsApp pinged. I glanced at the screen and saw the words that burned into my eyes. "Lena Hale, what's your problem? Don't expect me to call you ever again." I opened WhatsApp and typed, "There is no ever again." I hit send, tapped his profile picture, and blocked him. I knew that, as always, he wouldn't check his phone again after sending that message. But it didn't matter anymore. For the first time, I didn't scream or cry or beg. Sensing something was off, Ethan's assistant called shortly after. "Ms. Hale. Mr. Carter said he's in a business meeting right now. If you need anything, just tell me. But he specifically asked me to remind you not to act entitled just because you're pregnant." I stared at the documents Lucas had sent to my tablet and said flatly, "Got it." Ethan and I had dated for 3 years and been married for another 3. I'd finally gotten pregnant after so long, but at just over 2 months. My morning sickness had been brutal due to my weak constitution. I'd already been showing signs of a miscarriage, and the rage of that afternoon had pushed me over the edge. The baby was gone. Surprised by my calmness, the assistant added, "Mr. Carter also said every woman gets pregnant, but none are as high maintenance as you. Don't bother him with this kind of thing again." His harsh words didn't stop me from forwarding the documents to Lucas. Once I confirmed everything was correct, I signed my name firmly in the signature box on the tablet and hung up. Then I opened my Instagram feed and saw Chloe's post showing off an engagement ring. There was also a photo of a man's and woman's hands forming a heart, with the caption, "Tonight is perfect. I just got engaged to the man I love." The man's long, slender fingers had a small black mole on the index finger. It burned my eyes. I closed Instagram and turned off my phone. "Doctor, I'll sign for myself. Let's do the surgery." 7 days later, I was discharged from the hospital. Ethan's assistant came to pick me up and take me to the office. "Mr. Carter got drunk with clients last night and stayed at a hotel. He couldn't drive this morning, so he sent me to get you." I didn't get angry. I just nodded and got in the car. The assistant handed me a bag. "Mr. Carter specifically told me to buy you breakfast." I glanced inside. Fish cakes. Didn't he know that since I got pregnant? The smell of any fish made me throw up. No sooner had he spoken than Ethan's car sped past us. The window rolled down. Chloe was sitting next to him, laughing and talking like no one else existed. The assistant looked embarrassed and rushed to explain. "Ms. Reed has been sick and took 7 days off. Today's her first day back. Mr. Carter picked her up on his way here." Chloe's apartment was nowhere near the hotel the assistant had mentioned. But what did it matter? I touched my stomach, thinking about the peace I'd had in the hospital over the past week. Then I slipped off my wedding band, dropped it into the breakfast bag, and said, "Give this back to Mr. Carter later." We'd been together 6 years, and he'd never told anyone we were married, always saying the timing wasn't right. Even when he drove me to work, he'd drop me off blocks away from the office. But with Chloe, after just a few months, he couldn't wait for the whole company to know. I walked into the office calmly. Everyone looked at me with pity in their eyes. No one knew we were married, but everyone knew I was his real girlfriend. I ignored their stares. But half an hour later, Ethan stormed into my office. HR said you haven't been in the office all week. He barked the second he walked in. And you had my assistant give me back your wedding band. What the hell is this about? Lena. I couldn't help but say, don't you know exactly what this is about? I stared at the men's ring on his right ring finger, and he instinctively tried to hide it. I'd picked out our wedding bands myself. And I'd worn mine every day. But he'd always made excuses saying his career was still taking off and refused to wear his. I'd never understood what his career had to do with telling people we were married. Now I knew. He'd been saving himself to wear a ring with someone else. Openly and proudly. Ethan froze, his mouth opening as if to explain. But when he saw my cold, unemotional face and realized I wasn't going to fight, he got annoyed. Chloe likes this style. Just let her have it. If you don't like it, I'll buy you a different one later. Fine. A coldness settled in my chest. I still didn't fight. There was no point anymore. Noticing my low mood, Ethan said he'd drive me home that afternoon. I didn't reply. I just sat at my computer and started typing my resignation letter. At lunchtime, as I walked past another office, I heard whispers coming from inside. Do you think Mr. Carter is really dating Chloe? Of course he is. Didn't you see? He proposed to her. That's not true. Chloe only posted a photo on Instagram. She didn't say who proposed. It's definitely him. Mr. Carter never wore rings before. But today did you see the ring on his finger? It matches Chloe's exactly. Ms. Hale. Are you going to lunch too? The office went silent. I nodded at the HR manager and stepped into the elevator. That evening, as I was getting ready to leave, it started pouring rain. Ethan's assistant came in, looking apologetic. Ms. Hale. Mr. Carter said he has a client meeting tonight. He can't drive you home. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling window and watched Ethan open the car door for Chloe downstairs. His face soft with affection. The assistant looked guilty. I turned back to my desk and printed out my resignation letter. Late that night, I was half asleep when the bedroom door opened. Lena, I bought your favorite takoyaki and hibiscus iced tea. He dropped the bag on the bed, loosened his tie, took off his jacket, and headed for the bathroom. I didn't say anything. I sat up, and just then his cell phone, which he'd left on the nightstand, lit up. I glanced over and saw a message from Chloe. Ethan, honey. It was so romantic of you to walk me to Main Street in the rain for snacks. We didn't finish all the takoyaki, though, and you said my stomach was upset. So you wouldn't let me have the iced hibiscus tea. She'd added a sad face emoji at the end. So these were the leftovers. I remembered when I was pregnant, how I couldn't stand the smell of fish and could only keep down sour things. A few weeks earlier, I'd thrown up so hard I'd brought up bile, and I'd begged Ethan to go downstairs and buy me some hibiscus iced tea. He'd scoffed and said, Lena, know when to stop. Don't act like you're some princess just because you're pregnant. It's pouring outside. Can't you just wait? I got up and poured myself a glass of warm water. When Ethan came out of the bathroom in his bathrobe and saw I hadn't touched the food, he frowned. Why aren't you eating? I remember you were begging me to go out and buy this for you just a few days ago. I said calmly. I wanted it a few days ago. I don't want it now. Ethan's face turned cold. Lena, why are you being so high maintenance? Are you still mad at me because I didn't go to your prenatal appointment that day? Before I could answer, he swept everything off the nightstand and into the trash can. You can only act entitled for so long. Lena, this is too much. I ignored him and turned over in bed. In all the years we'd been together, every time we fought, no matter who was right or wrong, either lose his temper or give me the silent treatment. And I'd always been the one to cave, begging for forgiveness. But not this time, when I didn't respond. His face turned even colder. He stormed out and slept in the guest bedroom. The next morning, I woke up early and bought breakfast for two. Ethan's face softened. He'd known that if he just ignored me long enough, I'd come crawling back. I'm going to Paris on business tomorrow. Is there anything you want me to bring you back? I said blankly. No. Ethan thought I was still mad and got furious. Lena. Know when to stop. The air turned thick with tension. Then Ethan's phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID, forgot all about being angry, and hurried into the study. When he came out, he was still scowling, and he said in a commanding tone, "One of my clients loves your sweet and sour tilapia. Make sure you have it ready this afternoon. I'll send my assistant to pick it up." I looked down at the text from Lucas. "Lena. He has to sign the divorce agreement. I can handle everything else." I was silent for a moment, then said, "Fine." Ethan ate the breakfast I'd bought, didn't even realize I hadn't made it myself, frowned slightly, and left for work. I was an amazing cook, especially when it came to fish. Not because I loved cooking, but because Ethan loved eating fish. Back when I was trying to win him over, I'd watched cooking videos and practiced over and over, ruining dozens of fish before I got it right. After we graduated college, when he'd just started his company, he had a client from the coast who loved fish. Ethan had hired half a dozen chefs in Riverton to cook for him, but none of them had been good enough. In the end, I'd cooked the fish myself. The client had raved about it, and Ethan had landed the contract. That had been Carter Enterprises' first big break, and that client had become their biggest account. Of course, Ethan had given me some of the money from that deal. If he hadn't, my foster parents would have died from their illnesses long ago. I'd never forgotten that debt. After today, I'd owe him nothing. That afternoon, dark clouds rolled over Riverton and the rain poured down. The assistant never showed up. Instead, Ethan called. My assistant had to run an errand. "Bring the fish to the usual spot yourself." A moment later, Chloe's voice came on the line. "Lena dear, I've been craving fish so bad. But Ethan said restaurant food isn't clean, so he wouldn't let me go out. He told me you made sweet and sour tilapia just for me. I'm so excited." She hung up before I could say a word. By the time I got to the hotel, I was soaked to the bone. I opened the door to the private dining room, and it was packed with people. Ethan was leaning down, kissing Chloe on the forehead. Chloe saw me and pulled away, blushing. Ethan glanced at my dripping wet clothes and frowned slightly. Chloe looked up at me with innocent eyes. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea it was raining. I wouldn't have made the assistant go buy snacks if I'd known. And then you wouldn't have had to come all this way yourself." Ethan tapped her nose affectionately. "Don't worry about it. She's not that high maintenance." Chloe turned back to me, still looking innocent. "Lena dear, we're playing truth or dare. Do you want to join us?" Ethan scoffed. "She's way too boring for games like that." I stared at Ethan's impatient face, then pulled out the documents I'd prepared earlier. "Mr. Carter, this is the Brooks Group contract. I was afraid I wouldn't have time tomorrow morning, so could you sign it now? You promised you'd play with me tonight." Chloe pouted. "Why are you talking about work?" Ethan had been about to hesitate, but at Chloe's words, he grabbed the pen, flipped through the first few pages, and signed his name without a second thought. "There's a time and place for being diligent," he sneered. "Bringing work here is just rude." I didn't care. I took the signed documents and turned to leave. Ethan stared at my back, confused by my complete lack of anger. Just as I reached the door, he called out, "Wait. This contract seems longer than usual." I nodded calmly. "Legal added an extra liability form. Do you want me to show it to you?" I started to pull out the extra page, but Chloe wrapped her arms around Ethan's and whined, "Ethan honey, we haven't finished our game. Can we please not do boring work stuff right now?" Ethan pulled his hand away from me immediately. "Fine. Just leave me alone. Nothing's more important than spending time with Chloe tonight." "Okay." I walked out into the thunder and lightning. Behind me, I heard faint voices. "Ethan honey, the fish is cold. It's not as good as you said it would be. Do you think Lena made it bad on purpose because she doesn't like me? If you don't like it, just throw it in the trash." I touched the blister on my finger, burned from frying the fish. Then I pulled the signed divorce agreement out from between the contract pages, took a photo, and sent it to Lucas. Without looking back, I ran into the rain. Late that night, I got a text from Lucas. Lena. Everything's done. Your new driver's license is on its way, and I booked your flight. Welcome home. Okay. I stared at the flight information on my phone. Early the next morning, a package arrived with my new ID. I ate breakfast and was about to leave when there was a knock on the door. I opened it to find Ethan's assistant. Looking awkward. Ms. Hale. Mr. Carter is on his way to the airport. He didn't come home last night. So could you please bring his luggage? Before I could answer, he rolled out another suitcase. Mr. Carter also asked you to bring this one. It was a bright pink, girly suitcase. I knew immediately it belonged to Chloe. Even the assistant looked embarrassed. If you don't want to, Ms. Hale, I can take it myself. It's fine. I'm going that way anyway. I'll bring both. The assistant didn't catch the meaning behind my words. He thanked me profusely. Thank you so much, Ms. Hale. When I got to the airport, I handed Ethan his luggage. Chloe was clinging to his arm, smiling. Lena dear, you're so strong. You pushed both suitcases by yourself with no problem. Ethan told me you were a total workhorse. But I didn't believe him until now. I can barely carry a backpack without getting tired. Ethan always teases me for being such a klutz. I stared at their intertwined hands. Ethan looked uncomfortable. My assistant had a family emergency and can't come on the trip. Ms. Reed is coming alone. G to help out. I still didn't get angry. I just smiled genuinely and said, "That's great. Have a safe flight." Ethan stared at my smile. Something about my behavior over the past few weeks had been off, but he couldn't put his finger on what. Lena dear, Ethan's just looking out for you. You're pregnant, so you should stay home and rest. So she had known I was pregnant, but it didn't matter anymore. Ethan honey, it's almost time to board. Let's go, Chloe whispered, tugging on his arm. Okay. Ethan pushed his confusion aside and looked at her affectionately. Let's go. Chloe smiled and waved at me playfully. Bye, Lena dear. Bye. Good riddance. As soon as they disappeared through the gate, my smile faded. I pulled out my cell phone and removed the SIM card. Then I picked up my new driver's license and my new phone, grabbed my own suitcase, and walked toward a different gate. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong from the moment he stepped onto the plane. Chloe chattered away beside him. Once, he'd found her voice soothing. Now it just sounded loud and annoying. Ethan honey, what's wrong? Chloe asked, noticing his distraction. Nothing. Let's go. He dragged his luggage and followed her down the aisle. Be careful. You're pregnant. You shouldn't be pulling such a heavy suitcase. What if something happens to the baby? A young man was chasing after his wife, scolding her gently. Ethan thought about how Lena had pushed both suitcases by herself, and his face turned dark. Chloe realized what he was thinking and looked at him nervously. Ethan honey, I'm so sorry. I didn't know pregnant women aren't supposed to lift heavy things. It's fine. She's tough. Not like other pregnant women. They just sat down when the woman next to them suddenly screamed. Are you insane? I have terrible morning sickness and can't stand the smell of fish. Why would you bring fish cakes and dried calamari strips on a plane? Are you trying to make me throw up on purpose? I'm sorry. My sister gave them to me. Sister. Yeah, right. Your sister. You're not even related. Why are you calling her that? You have no boundaries. Or are you just using that as an excuse to cheat on me? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Chloe's face turned white. Ethan honey. I had no idea this would happen. Ethan's face turned black. He couldn't sit still any longer and stood up to leave, but a flight attendant stopped him. Sir, please take your seat. The plane is about to take off. Ethan fumbled for his phone and called me, but the operator said, sorry, the number you have dialed is turned off. His face grew darker. He opened WhatsApp and sent me a message, but it bounced back. He'd been blocked. She'd changed her phone number and blocked him. What the hell was she doing? When my plane landed, I was still in a daze. As the announcement played, I grabbed my luggage and hurried out of the airport. My family was waiting for me just outside. "Lena, you're finally home," Lucas said, pulling me into a hug. Mom and Dad smiled through their tears. "We're so glad you're here." Tears streamed down my face as I looked at the family I'd lost and found again. "Mom, Dad, I'm so sorry it took me so long to come home. I'd been raised by a foster couple in the countryside. My birth parents had found me 3 years earlier, but when they learned I was married, they'd never interfered in my life. And I'd never told Ethan about them. When I got in the car, I saw it was filled with snacks, flowers, and cute stuffed animals. They watched me nervously, as if afraid I wouldn't like it. I smiled and said, "Lucas, did you look up all my favorite things? This is perfect. I'm so happy." I knew they were just trying to make up for all the years we'd lost. My parents sighed with relief. Lucas grinned. "Wait till you see what's next." I didn't understand what he meant until we walked into the mansion. There, standing in the living room, were my foster parents. "Dad, Mom, what are you doing here?" I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. I ran to them and fell to my knees, sobbing. I knew leaving Riverton would be hardest because of them. Lucas said softly, "If you're going to disappear, you might as well disappear completely." I nodded. They never asked me about what had happened, but I knew they understood everything. My foster parents had moved into a mansion in the same neighborhood. I could stay with my birth parents or with them whenever I wanted. I had nothing to worry about anymore. At first, I felt guilty, but Lucas said, "Mom and Dad have blamed themselves every day since you were kidnapped. Your foster parents took you in and raised you when we couldn't. They deserve this house and more." After getting my foster parents settled in, I went back to my new home. I'd never lived with my birth parents before, and I wanted to savor every moment of being with them. They'd prepared a beautiful bedroom for me. I took a shower, ate a home-cooked meal, and talked with my parents until late into the night. By the time I got to my room, it was almost morning. I slept like a baby. When I woke up naturally the next day, it was already afternoon. I picked up my old phone and realized I'd forgotten to log out of WhatsApp. There were dozens of messages waiting for me. Some were from old clients, some from former coworkers. One was from a coworker I'd been close to. "Lena, where are you? The office is in chaos." I was surprised, but I didn't reply right away. Before I could, she sent a flurry of messages. "Mr. Carter showed up at the office this morning. Out of nowhere. He was supposed to be in Paris. I heard he landed in Paris, bought a return ticket, and flew straight back. He only bought one ticket. He left Ms. Reed stranded in Paris. When he got back to the office, he stormed into HR, screamed at everyone, and fired the HR manager. When Ms. Reed showed up at noon, he wouldn't even look at her. He put her on indefinite leave. I think she's fired. The mistress never wins. Everyone's laughing at her now. Lena, you should come back. Don't let her get away with this." I didn't reply. I knew that whatever happened between Ethan and Chloe was none of my business anymore. It was all in the past. To be safe, I deactivated my old WhatsApp account and made a new one. It was time to close the door on my old life for good. With my new family, my heart slowly started to heal. Every day, I'd visit my foster parents, then go shopping with my mom. After a month, I realized just how wealthy the Hale family was. Far wealthier than I'd ever imagined. Surrounded by love and security, I finally started to feel like myself again. One day, Mom and I were shopping at the mall. She went to get the car and told me to wait for her by the exit. No sooner had she left than my phone rang with an unknown number. I answered it without thinking. "Hello, who is this?" No one spoke. I thought it was a wrong number and hung up. But then a shadow fell over me. I looked up and saw Ethan standing there, holding his phone, his face twisted with rage. My blood ran cold. I realized he'd been the one who called. I turned to run, but he grabbed my arm, dragged me into a corner, and pinned me against the wall. "Lena Hale, have you had enough of this? Blocking me, disappearing. How long are you going to throw this tantrum?" I couldn't believe he'd found me. I was trapped, but I kept my head. "Ethan, We're divorced. Leave me alone. Don't ever come looking for me again. At the word divorced, Ethan went crazy. His eyes turned red. Divorced? When? How? I never agreed to a divorce. My first thought was that his lawyer hadn't told him yet. But Lucas had said everything was taken care of. Ethan must have known he'd signed the divorce agreement that night at the hotel. Divorce isn't up to you or me, I said, keeping my voice calm and steady. If you don't believe me, go check the court records. No, I didn't know what I was signing. It doesn't count. Just because I signed a piece of paper doesn't mean we're divorced. In my heart, you're still my wife. You'll always be my wife. His words sounded hollow and fake to me. I said coldly, Ethan, watch your mouth. Respect me. Respect yourself. And respect Ms. Reed. Ethan finally realized what was bothering me. Lena, I know you're upset about Chloe. But you have it wrong. Nothing happened between us. We're just friends. I stared at his earnest face and laughed. Just friends. You proposed to her. If we hadn't been married, it would be one thing. But we were. You might as well have spit in my face. Ethan swallowed hard. Lena, please listen. Chloe's brother is my best friend from childhood. She has cancer. She doesn't have much time left. I was just granting her dying wish. She said she'd never gotten to experience love or marriage. And she wanted to know what it felt like before she died. We never slept together. I swear. I didn't say anything. It was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. And that was even assuming Chloe actually had cancer. Even if it were true. She knew we were married. Didn't she have any decency? If she just wanted to experience being in love, she could have found a single man. Why did it have to be my husband? I didn't believe Chloe was that naive. And I didn't believe Ethan was either. Chloe didn't want anyone to know she was dying, Ethan added, seeing the disbelief on my face. She didn't want people to pity her. So if she'd said she wanted to experience having a baby, would you have done that too? Ethan was speechless for a moment, then said, Chloe would never ask for that. Then keep playing your little game. But Ethan, we're divorced. Leave me alone. I never want to see either of you again. No, you're carrying my baby. We still have a future. You have to come back with me, Ethan shouted, his voice cracking. Lena, I can't live without you. The baby. My eyes turned to ice. It died the day you took Chloe to the hospital for her gynecological exam. That's a lie. You're lying. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. He grabbed my shoulders and shook me. It can't be gone. You're lying to me. Get your hands off my daughter. Mom had pulled up and couldn't find me, so she'd started looking around. When she saw us, she ran over and pushed Ethan away. She stood between me and Ethan, glaring at him with hatred. Ethan snapped out of his rage. But before he could speak, Lucas showed up with 2 security guards. They pulled Ethan off me and beat him up. Lucas threw the court divorce decree at his feet. I've been wanting to punch you for years. If you wanted to cheat, just say so. Don't act like you're some hero for playing house with a dying girl. You loved every second of it. Stay away from my sister, or next time it'll be worse. Ethan didn't even glance at the decree. He tore it into pieces and stared at me, his eyes desperate. Lena, I know I was wrong. I made a mistake. I'm so used to having you around. I took you for granted. Come back with me, and I'll forget all about this. I promise. Please. The security guards stood back, waiting for Lucas's orders. Lucas looked at me, waiting for me to say something. I met Ethan's pleading eyes and said clearly, I called you the night of my DC. You were annoyed. You're the one who broke us. Go home. Ethan, I'm never coming back. I don't love you anymore. Ethan's eyes widened as if I'd struck him. His lips trembled. No. That can't be. We promised. When we got married, we promised we'd love each other forever. I stared back at him, my voice cold and unforgiving. You also promised you'd only ever be with me. We're adults. Promises don't keep people together. I did everything I could for you. Ethan, I have a clear conscience. If I had to do it all over again, I'd leave exactly the same way. Ethan looked like he'd been punched in the gut. I turned away from him, and Lucas said to the guards, "Take him to the police station." As they dragged Ethan away, Lucas added, "And for the record, you're an idiot for believing Chloe. What kind of cancer patient goes around partying and falling in love instead of getting treatment?" On the drive home, Mom and Lucas didn't say a word about what had happened. They knew I was upset. When we got home, Lucas told me to get some rest and said he'd take care of everything else. Mom thought I was heartbroken, but I wasn't. I went to my room, took a nap, and woke up feeling fine. A few days later, Mom told Lucas to take me out to get some fresh air. Truth be told, being with my family had already healed me, but Mom didn't believe it. So I played along. In the car, Lucas said, "I erased all your records from Riverton. But your foster parents are still there." I'm sorry, I should have thought this through better. I knew Ethan had found me through my foster parents. It doesn't matter. Even if he finds me 100 times, I'm never going back. Lucas could see I meant it. And he smiled. "Come on, I'm taking you somewhere fun." Lucas had dressed me up nicely, and he took me to a private mansion. I realized then that he was taking me to a party. I don't think he realized how much I hated these kinds of events. My best friend is back from abroad today. The Brooks family is throwing him a welcome home party. All the most eligible bachelors and they are here, Lucas said, grinning. Oh, so this wasn't just a fun outing. It was a setup. I was over Ethan, but I wasn't ready to start dating again. It wouldn't be fair to me or to anyone else. But I didn't want to ruin Lucas's fun. So I just smiled. The party was boring. I stayed for a little while. But before I even met Lucas's friend, I snuck up to the second-floor balcony to get some air. But the next second, someone grabbed my wrist. I panicked. But when I saw who it was, I saw red. "Ethan. What the hell are you doing here?" "Lena. It's been 2 weeks. I thought you'd have calmed down by now. But here you are, at a party full of single men. What? You couldn't wait to find someone else to replace me?" "Shut up." I was so angry I slapped him across the face. "Don't you dare compare me to you." Ethan froze. He couldn't believe the woman who'd once loved him so desperately had just hit him. The slap didn't hurt much physically, but it felt like a knife had been twisted in his heart. The cold wind from the window blew through him. He stared at me. I didn't look sad or broken. In fact, I looked happier and healthier than I had in years. His chest ached. He couldn't understand it. He hadn't done anything that bad. He hadn't even cheated on her. Why wouldn't she just forgive him? She'd always been so easy to win back. All he'd had to do was give her the silent treatment, and she'd come crawling back. And now he'd even begged her to come home. He'd thought this time would be no different. He'd thought if he just waited long enough, she'd come back to him. But she hadn't. It was like she'd vanished from his life completely. Everyone had always envied them. They'd gone from college sweethearts to husband and wife. She'd been loyal and devoted. And everyone said she'd loved him more than anything. He'd always believed that too. He'd thought that no matter what he did, as long as he didn't divorce her, she'd never leave him. He'd been so confident, so sure he could take her for granted forever. He couldn't believe they'd ended up like this. "Lena dear, how could you hit Ethan?" Chloe had appeared out of nowhere and was now holding Ethan's arm. "You're still married to him." I rolled my eyes at their little act and turned to walk back down the stairs. But Chloe stuck her foot out, trying to trip me. If I'd fallen, I could have seriously hurt myself. I realized then that she hadn't come to apologize. She'd come to hurt me. But I'd been expecting something like this. I pulled my foot back at the last second and stepped hard on her instep. "Oh!" Chloe screamed and stumbled toward Ethan. But he stepped away. She stared at him in disbelief. "Ethan honey." I smirked at her and kicked her in the shin with my high heel. "Cancer. Huh? You seem pretty healthy for someone who's dying. Trying to trip me down the stairs. You're a vicious little thing, aren't you?" "Ethan honey. Help me," Chloe cried. But she didn't fight back. She just looked to Ethan for help. Ethan stood there coldly, as if trying to prove his loyalty to me. "Chloe. You said you wanted to make amends. This is what you deserve." You said you'd help me win Lena back. Chloe couldn't believe it. The man who'd once doted on her was now throwing her under the bus. You're supposed to be my brother's best friend. How could you do this to me? Friends? Ethan scoffed. When I was being your friend, what were you doing to me? Lying to him, tricking him, making him lose the only woman he'd ever loved. Chloe looked devastated, but I was tired of this. Ethan, our problem was never Chloe, even if she apologized. It wouldn't change anything. Some things can't be fixed. Some relationships can't be saved. Chloe was terrible, but if Ethan had been faithful and honest, none of this would have happened. If it hadn't been Chloe, it would have been someone else. I was sick of both of them. I turned and walked down the stairs. Ethan panicked and tried to stop me, but a tall man stepped in front of me, shielding me from him. Don't you dare touch her. A deep, commanding voice said. Lena, are you okay? Lucas had arrived, and I realized the man standing in front of me was his best friend, the one he'd been talking about. Liam Brooks. Liam Brooks. Ethan's eyes widened. I'm here to discuss a partnership with the Brooks Group. I don't remember sending you an invitation. Liam said coldly. He turned to the butler. Show these two out. Ethan panicked. This partnership with the Brooks Group was the only thing keeping Carter Enterprises afloat. Without it, his company would go under. But if he angered Liam, the deal was off. Realizing he had nothing to gain by staying, he turned back to me. Lena, this is your last chance. Come with me now, and we can forget all about this. You will not disrespect this house, Liam said, his voice low and dangerous. Mr. Brooks, this is none of your business. I'm just taking my wife home, Ethan said. Liam frowned. Chloe stared at him, seething with jealousy. Why did Lena get to have all the luck? First Ethan, now this handsome, rich man. Ethan, shut up. Lucas snapped before I could speak. My sister is divorced from you. Don't you ever call her your wife again. Liam's voice turned icy. Get them out of here. Now. Once they were gone, Liam turned to me. Are you all right? I stared at him in shock. He was the client, the one who'd loved my sweet and sour tilapia all those years ago. The one who'd helped Ethan get his first big break. He smiled at me. And suddenly everything made sense. I realized then that I hadn't been the only one who'd loved unrequitedly. Lucas watched us, grinning from ear to ear. His matchmaking plan had clearly worked. A year later, Liam and I were planning our wedding. He wanted everyone to know we were getting married, so he invited everyone he knew. The day I went to try on wedding dresses, I ran into my old coworker from Carter Enterprises. Ms. Hale, is that really you? She stared at me in my wedding dress. Speechless. It's me, I said, smiling. I thought you were still in Riverton. What are you doing in South Bay? Oh, didn't you hear? Carter Enterprises went bankrupt 6 months ago. I moved to South Bay with my boyfriend, she said, after you left. We lost our biggest client. The business just fell apart. Oh, and do you remember Ms. Reed? I didn't really care. But she kept talking. Mr. Carter blamed Ms. Reed for losing the baby. He said she was delusional and had her committed to a mental hospital. A friend in Riverton told me Ms. Reed was arrested recently. She'd been paying doctors to fake her cancer diagnosis. As for Mr. Carter, he tried to start a few more businesses after the company went under, but they all failed. He's in huge debt to the bank. And now he's working a regular 9-to-5 job. I heard he's miserable. People always think they're going to get lucky, but not everyone can be a CEO, right? She realized I wasn't saying anything and changed the subject awkwardly. Honestly, everyone at the office thought Mr. Carter had lost his mind. He had someone as amazing as you. And he threw it all away for Ms. Reed. It was so stupid. I just smiled. She could tell I didn't want to talk about it. So she asked, so you're getting married? Who's the lucky guy? Just then, Liam walked out in his suit. He was tall and handsome, and the sunlight streaming through the window made him glow. He looked at me, his eyes full of love and anticipation. I smiled and walked over to him, placing my hand in his. Him.